Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can hear
I
you.
Hear you talking.
Okay, guys, I'm ready to go.
I want to start by thanking our Land Use Housing and Zoning Committee for all the hard work they've put into this. They've had multiple committee meetings, lots of hours offline, and have written a very thoughtful and comprehensive resolution on the items raised at the committee meetings. And so I want to thank them for all their hard work. And just a little bit about process, because this is a special executive committee. So essentially, the reason this is called, as I outlined in my email to you all, is that we are being asked to weigh in on this at two events in advance of our full board meeting this Thursday. Those events are Borough Board, the Manhattan Borough President's Office tomorrow morning at 8:30.
Recording in progress.
And then at the CPC public hearing on Wednesday. So in accordance with our bylaws, I've called this so that the executive committee may vote on the position on the resolution put forward by the Land Use Housing and Zoning Committee. And should that pass, that will become the official position of Manhattan Community Board 5. That will then be presented at those two events as the official position, like it would normally, were ratified by the full board. And then on Thursday, we will still vote on the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity resolution. And that will essentially be a ratifying of the position taken by the executive committee. Now, should that align perfectly, nothing happens. It's just we move on and we just got it out of the way a little earlier. If there are distinctions or changes made between our vote tonight and the vote of the full board on Thursday, we will have to take actions in accordance with our bylaws to make that clear to whoever we report this to. So just as an arbitrary example, if we voted yes tonight and the full board decided that that was not how they felt and we said no, then we would have to go back to all those agencies, the borough board, CPC, et cetera, and say, no, our position has changed. It is now this. So a little bit of sort of the structure of how I would like tonight to run. I'd like to start with a summary of the resolution presented by Aaron, just to sort of go through high level, like we would at a normal exec meeting, the resolution. We will then have questions of the resolution, first by executive committee members in the room and online, and then by CB5 members in the room and online, and then finally members of the public for questions and comments. We will then move to business session where we will do comments to the resolution. And that is where I would like to address any potential modifications or sort of additions, subtractions, whatever, to the resolution. I'd like to sort of get all of those on the table rather than bringing each one up and debating them independently. Should there be any. And then we will sort of then decide how we want to package these. If we like all of them, we can vote all of them up, we can bundle it and put it all in one vote, or if we want to split them up, that's also an option. But that's sort of the way I'd like to keep things moving tonight. So that I know we have a lot of meetings together this week, so I'd like to try and keep this one moving. So unless there are any questions or concerns to that process, I'd say let's get started with you, Aaron.
Okay, thank you, Brad. So we're here discussing City of Yes housing opportunity. I would best describe this as a series of proposals that Department of City Planning is presenting to us. We had a series of several meetings with DCP. There are citywide proposals as well as a mix of low density, medium and high density proposals. Some of these impact CB5 more than others. So a lot of our research and focus of conversation was in regards to medium and high density districts. The new mechanism that DCP is proposing is called universal affordability preference. So similar but different from past housing programs. The concept, the broad concept, and we'll go into detail, but the broad concept of that is a 20% bonus for affordable units, lifelong affordable units as part of an incentive. Well, first of all, an incentive to develop rental apartment buildings. You know, in our district, we're dealing with a mixture of rental buildings as well as condos. But the jettison of this proposal is really meant to incentivize rental apartments, which we need in the city, and to incentivize rental apartments with affordability. Now, there's a whole slew of AMI questions that we get into. But the basic idea is that density bulk increases for projects. And in return, we get affordable units. The other proposals talk about a mechanism to increase the transfer of development rights from historic landmarks all around the city. So that impacts certain districts more than others. And we'll get into this as well, but the mechanism for transfer of development rights, again, will allow bonuses for developers who can sort of accumulate rights from the district. Right now, broadly speaking, the development rights are going to be transferred to adjacent zoning lots on pretty much the same block that the landmark resides in now. The change that is proposed of City of Yes is that there's a broader geography for the transfer of these development rights over a larger area. And again, you know, there's combination of zoning lots, but essentially it in some cases would triple the geography of the receiving sites that would be eligible for the transfer of those development rights. So it's going to increase the volume of those transfers in certain districts around the city where there are landmarks that have available development rights. In that scenario, there is no mandate of affordability. So you can have an universal sort of unlimited transfer of those air rights that does not trigger the universal affordability preference. And then there's an additional clause that we'll get into that also allows for additional mechanisms of bonuses without necessarily a mandate of affordability. There were some citywide proposals that we briefly discussed in a resolution regarding parking, campus infill, and shared and small family housing, which are largely things that don't affect our district. But there are a few things that the resolution addresses. We had a very spirited but good discussion where this resolution came out of our committee meeting. We have what's in front of you is a approval of City of Yes with a very sort of clear, detailed list of stipulations and conditions that we felt would be necessary, which again represents the spectrum of the conversation that we had in the room in terms of supporting affordable housing, supporting the proposals as a whole, but things that we addressed, the gaps and really outstanding questions and potential gaps or ways to make the proposals better. So I'll take any questions, but I'm going to let Julie go into some detail. Julie was was the lead on this, and is going to go into detail about the resolution that we have to talk about tonight.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. So basically, this reso is trying to navigate the two different sides that we seem to have at committee, where a lot of people wanted to have a yes vote with stipulations, and a lot of people were very concerned about some of these things that Aaron just mentioned. So it's a robust reso to capture all the concerns, so we can try to get to consensus. And tonight, we're hoping that there'll be more discussion, because it was a very short meeting with two presentations from DCP as well as George James and a couple other agenda items. So we welcome more feedback, but just to, for people to understand, we did agree on a list of items that Microsoft Word kind of provided after he listened to a bunch of our concerns. So from line item 118 to 124 is a list of those concerns that is in the reso. We talked about stronger affordability mandates, strong anti-displacement measures, mechanisms to promote diverse property ownership, guaranteed infrastructure improvements, meaningful community input process, and annual comprehensive data collection. That's kind of trying to get more input with DCP. So I know there was some concerns that this was a lot more than what we discussed in the committee meeting, but all the points fall under those rubric. Wonder if it makes sense to open up to comments.
Questions first, just as an, from like an understanding perspective.
Well, can I just add one additional piece? So the resolution, as some of our resolutions often do, they provide sort of additional research and historical context. So in the first part of the resolution, Julie tries to sort of get us up to speed on how did we get to where we are now, right? The various administrations. Again, it's not about which side do we think about those existing administrations, but trying to sort of state out the facts between the last 30 years of what has happened on the city to get us to where we are now.
Actually, that's a good point, because I know we want to show all the diverse viewpoints, but at the same time, those rezonings are showing the concerns of what happened, the repercussions of the affordability of the displacement. We can make it wider. I know, Concord, you proposed some additional ones. But, yeah, that's to be discussed. But I do want to mention that the reso has gone through some initial comments from people who did make comments during the consent. So we just sent them to them early, and Ankur, Aaron's, and I think Mike's comments were incorporated already. So there was one round of revisions.
But for
but
the
not
sake
all
of
of them.
everyone in this meeting, again, not everyone was able to participate in that email exchange. So it'd be great if we, discuss now
Sure.
versus so that everyone's on the same page on this committee that may not be have been on all those emails or
Yeah.
seen that deliberation. I would say the other umbrella thing just to keep in mind is we had a really great conversation with DCP, and they've been really we've been great partners with DCP throughout the years in terms of working on applications with them. And they are really looking to us to comment and shape this. And this is what I forgot to mention is this is the third City of Yes initiative. So earlier last year, we addressed some City of Yes sustainability proposals. We also addressed some economic development proposals from City of Yes. And a few months ago, if anyone was keeping up with the City Council, voted on the City of Yes economic opportunity and incorporated a lot of feedback they received from community boards in their deliberation at City Council. So again, the City Council did wind up passing the last City of Yes proposal with substantial updates and revisions that was part of a community outreach and support. So for the housing opportunity, we expect that same sort of structure where the City Council will definitely be voting and deliberating on this in the fall. And we'll hopefully be using notes and comments and feedback from the community outreach process, as well as direct feedback from the community boards all around the city. So that is the lay of the land in terms of the process we're expecting. And there's a public hearing on Wednesday, and the vote is scheduled to take place in September.
To put some context, I think the reso is trying to say we need some development, we need supply. We're not against supply. We just want to put some guardrails on the supply because in the past rezonings, okay, so there's a couple of things that is really strong about the housing opportunity. for the first time, this is gonna be upzoning across the entire city, right? And what the two previous administration did was they focused on neighborhoods that didn't have as much power, or, you know, they're more underrepresented, and those people got the brunt of the development. For the Bloomberg, he upzoned certain areas, but downzone wealthier neighborhoods. So that's in some of the beginning whereases. And then we wanted to highlight that that supply isn't the only answer, right? We need other mechanisms. So to protect some of the people that may be displaced, we need HPD to provide enough subsidy. We need amenities for like public space and community facilities. So I think the idea is that we want to highlight some of these concerns.
Any questions to the resolution? Any questions? I'll do exec members first, and then if not, so I see none from exec, so we'll move to CB5 members. or
Wait a
Catherine.
second, I have a question.
And I do too.
All right.
So my question to Julie, and this can be taken up in follow-up questions, is to the best of your ability, does this resolution reflect a fair statement and weighing of the equities of our land use committee? I know I saw emails going back and forth, and you just mentioned that there have been some changes made already. Does this, we in the executive committee, at least in the short run, are going to be putting forth the statement of our community board on this really critical issue. So is this resolution a fair summary of where our land use committee stands right now? And of course, we're going to talk about it. Is that the case?
So I know there's a lot of concern about affordability in this proposal, and maybe we should outline how affordability works with housing opportunity. So we talk about MIH, mandatory inclusionary housing, in one of the whereases. So that's the city has some areas that are MAC MIH right now, and for developments that will want to use the 12.0 FAR, for those that want to build more residential than the 12.0 FAR limit right now, they're going to have to go through some kind of ULURP process where they're going to be, MIH will be triggered. So any development that has a lot of residential will require MIH. So that's the mandatory, the affordable housing that will definitely be created with this proposal. And then the affordable housing that I work on is where it's government funded. UAP is going to allow 20% larger sites. And one thing to mention, this 20% is from a precedent. It's an heirs precedent. So senior housing right now, they're allowed through the zoning resolution to grow the zoning envelope 20% to build more units just for seniors. And they're taking that piece and letting that allowance be for all types of housing. Affordable housing, non-affordable housing, supportive housing, some of the things that we've been wanting in from CB5. So that's a good thing, and government affordable housing will definitely use that to create more affordable housing for those sites. And then there's the UAP that's going to be, that we're trying to see if that's going to be used for market rate projects. So the city or the state recently provided the 485X program, which is a replacement of 421A that sunsetted 2 years ago. So a lot of market rate developers have been waiting for this program to build rental buildings. And just to let you guys know, what's different about 485X from 421A is that to get the 40-year tax abatement that is provided, you provide 20 or 30% affordable housing. But that has been low, that 130% AMI that was required in the previous 421A has now been reduced to 80% AMI. So from my understanding, developers need this to build rental buildings in our city. So it is likely that 80% AMI units will be created through this. And then the question is, will they use UAP? Because UAP will let them build more units with 20% affordable housing. But UAP requires 60% AMI instead of 80% AMI. And what the community board used to be concerned about is double and triple dipping with these 421As, because you're getting, you know, tax abatement plus, you know, 130% AMI is almost market rate AMI. But now it's a little bit harder with the 80% AMI, they get less income. But again, that 40% tax abatement, 40-year tax abatement goes a long way. And then the fact that 80% doesn't match 60% AMI is, I think, is also a good thing, because we're gonna be asking them for even deeper affordability if they want the extra FAR and the extra heights.
Julie, this might be a good time to talk about, just because it's a little bit of a tricky subject for the people out of the weeds on AMI percentages. Do you want to talk about, I think we had a chart, or do you want to talk about the AMI line specifically? Again, about the, there's something in here about the AMI versus neighborhood disparity
Yes, so
percentage.
AMI is a big deal because, so average AMI, I think in New York, last time, was about 75,000, I want to say. So there's a lot of neighborhoods like the South Bronx and East New York where I build, where 30% AMI is what they need to not be displaced. That's the average income of residents in their neighborhood. If you're building more than 30% AMI, you're basically creating gentrification, which is unfortunate because a lot of affordable housing sometimes that are being built is 80% AMI. 80% AMI in East New York displaces the residents there. Whereas in Midtown, a lot of people are making 100% AMI, 130% AMI, because they have higher incomes. Maybe not, you know, not as high as to not need affordable housing, but there are people that would like to stay in place, and the 80% AM or 60% AMI that DCP is requiring isn't helping some of the people within our district. But what happens is this ripple effect, right? People get priced out of our district, they move to Western Queens, or the South Bronx has a lot of luxury towers on the waterfront now. And then, so they're moving out there, and then those people in those neighborhoods get displaced further and further out. This just doesn't create the stable neighborhood that we want for our city.
I just wanted to steer it back to that. Todd, was your question answered by that, or do you? You're muted. You're muted, Todd. Todd, you're muted.
I just wanted to get some sense that the resolution we're looking at is more or less a fair statement of where the committee is making its recommendation, you know, ultimately to the full board and to us tonight. And I think it is. It's detailed, and as Julie says, it has all this context, and we can be reasonably certain that we're acting on a finished product, I think.
Great, thank you. Catherine.
Yes, so I had I have a specific question regarding line 188. It talks about the nuanced manner of our presentation versus submitting via the form. And I wanted to know, where is the form, and do we cover what the form, I'm talking about what we're submitting to DCP. They have a form. Do we follow all the points in the form as well? And where is the form? I didn't know if it was the form that was in City of Yes, that's kind of a template. That was like a specific question. And then I guess the second question, are we still taking comments? I think I would like to add some comments. I thought we would bring all our comments here,
We will do it here, but we're gonna do it after questions.
but people have submitted comments, and I just need some clarification on how we submit our comments. Do you want them in writing? People have already said a lot, so
Yeah, so I mean, we will address that when we get to comments.
Okay.
I have a list of people who have sort of submitted comments, and we can have those read in if people need them, but if you have comments, I would say save them until that period of the meeting.
And then I can address her first question.
Yes.
So Catherine, thank you for the question on the form. So, one of the parts of our research, was to actually, we had a planning consultant help with some research on this project, as well as, and that planning consultant also worked with some other community boards. We also compared notes and talked to our neighboring community boards, CB4, CB6, across Manhattan, to get some insight into how they were handling the process. So a few community boards also did the same thing, where the nuanced comments and detailed comments and analysis didn't sort of, the form that DCP provided did not lend itself well to sort of detailed comments. And a few other community boards also did the same thing. I'm not sure if it was across the board, but everything we're addressing addresses their need, but goes a step further, because it didn't provide the sort of opportunity for the more detailed notes and comments that we are creating.
thank you.
We can send you that form. We have it somewhere. It's in one of the links that was on the website. So the form is in that page.
I just wanted to make sure I was looking at the same form. Thank you.
Renee,
Could you please put the final, what we're talking about in the chat? Like, people have made comments, I don't know what draft we're all looking at.
be the same one that I emailed out. So it's the same one that I emailed out to the full board earlier this week, but we can put a version in the chat.
Okay, so that's the one that's, okay, just wanted to make
That's
sure.
the latest and greatest. Yeah, the one that went out to the full board by email is for review. Is the latest and greatest.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from members of exec before I open it up to the CB5 members? You're on.
Can I just ask a procedural question? Is it correct that comment on this is open until September?
Correct. So we are doing this now because we are being asked to weigh in at Borough Board, and because the comment process begins at the meeting this Wednesday, but they will still accept comments until their September meeting. I think it's September 11th, when they will accept those comments. So if we had additional comments or if things changed between the Wednesday meeting and that, we could amend or add amended comments then, but that's like Wednesday starts the process, and that September meeting kind of ends the process.
Can I ask a follow-up? I understand the Borough Board question. Is there a substantive difference between giving oral comment at a meeting and written comment later? I'm just trying to understand what is driving the urgency for commenting on something that is open for comment until September.
It's just so that our voice is sort of heard at that initial, so that we're getting in there like at the beginning of the process rather than sort of having it happen at the end. But substantively, we have been told they will be hearing things from now until then. So what they have told us is there is no difference.
Okay.
Okay, Charles.
Thank you, Chair. when it is said that these affordable housing apartments are for life, when these developers have this 20% bonus to provide affordable housing for life, is that life of the tenant, meaning if the tenant moves out or passes away, does that apartment then no longer count as an affordable unit? And my other question is, can you please tell me the difference between approve with conditions and deny with unless, and how that has worked historically? Maybe someone who has been on the board for a longer time or a good amount of years, maybe they could also weigh in and please explain how effective a deny unless is versus approve with conditions. And my final question is, since I just heard that comments are opened up until September, is there anything our board can do in any way to get some members to volunteer to try to get comments from people who are in affordable housing in our district? Because I feel like some people might not be aware of this Housing for Yes. I'm worried that some of the voices in our district are not being heard as they don't have access to the internet or access to knowing about any of this. And it'd be great if somehow we could try to capture some of their comments from some of the vulnerable members of our district. Thank you.
So I'll answer the first one. I think, often in my tenure on the board, we've had intense debates about the difference between a denial with conditions, a denial unless, or a conditional approval. I would say it really depends on the type of application. So Charles, there had been a feeling in the past that for a less publicly facing proposal, a permit, or a very limited scope application, may not get a lot of notice from our resolution, and an approval might not be looked at in detail. So a denial unless, again, depending on the city agency, depending on the type of application, a denial unless would signal that they should take a look at our recommendations a little more deeper. With that said, I would say broad city proposal such as City of Yes, either way, everyone in the city is paying attention to this. This is a huge proposal from city council to everyone involved. So I don't know if that prior distinction between a denial unless and a conditional approval, it could still matter here. So again, it's about interpretation, and I think it's been different for every committee. So again, I think it's hard to generalize on that. But I would say that ultimately DCP is going to be voting on this, and then city council is going to be voting. I would say the details of our resolution will be seen and heard by people in city council voting on this, irrespective of the semantics of probably a denial versus a conditional approval. So I think the meat and the substance of what we're recommending is very important, and we touch on like 6 or 7 different categories that will be heard. But again, I can't comment on whether or not they'll be interpreted differently in the manner you're suggesting, if it's coming as a denial unless or as a conditional approval. But the important recommendations about how we can expand the proposal, I think, is important and will exist in the resolution either way.
You answered the first question about the length of the affordability of the unit.
So Julie can jump in if I'm incorrect, but I believe it would not reset if that current tenant leaves. So permanent affordability would be permanent and would not change if the current tenant decides to move. Julie, you probably know the official ruling on that. Okay.
Charles, remind us, the last question was the canvassing of lower income, is that, I don't think that's typically part of our process, but have we done it before on anything?
You know,
else?
I don't have a good answer on that. I don't know what we've done in the past.
Yeah,
It sounds like a great idea and I would like to do that. I'm just not sure the mechanism, how we could do that, but.
all right, so we'll have to look into that last one. I think that's not a typical part of our process, but perhaps could be integrated. So we'll have to get back on that. Circle back on that one. Are there any other questions from CB5 members? It's the raise hand function. All right, seeing none, we'll go to questions and comments from members of the public. So the first one I see is John Mudd.
Hi.
Yeah.
My-
Go ahead.
Yeah, my face isn't up there. I guess. Anyway, hi, John Mudd here, Midtown South Community Council. We've certainly met on a couple of occasions. The affordability aspect, let's start with the 421A thing that's been changed, the name's changed. Have you guys, first of all, they've worked around that 421A. And they're going to do it again. When we're talking about these tools, I mean, I know their best intent is never used properly. And the reason being is what we're doing is you're taking a plan from the mayor and developers really, and you're negotiating. And I'm sure you did some detailed work, and I love the fact, Julie, that you're thinking about the long-term displacement, and you laid it out very nicely. And I love the other members said something about what the community, the community needs here, and it needs a lot of balance. So you've got a plan that's coming to you, and you probably did a lot of detailed work, but it's still superficial. I say this because I know in my circles, we're hustling to understand it. We're hustling to make statements. We're hustling for these hearings, and we're hustling to come to these meetings. And this is being pushed through at such a rapid pace. And this is very connected. It's really connected to the developers wanting to demolish NYCHA, want to take over the management of it, the Penn Station redevelopment. And the same thing happened with the Penn Station. Everybody's sitting around a table negotiating. They're negotiating for the whole community, but yet the whole community is not involved. So they're negotiating and they're trying to get the best deal out of this plan. But the plan is superficial. It hasn't really done a deep dive. It doesn't look. It doesn't talk to the advocates. It doesn't look at. I mean, as far as the 421A, does anybody know how many different workarounds and what's happened with the 421A is the reason why that was fought so hard by tenant advocates to squash, and now they brought it back. That's a good question to ask. And the goal, I think, should be ending homelessness. If you're going to unveil, and it's not just about density and high density, that sort of thing. You need a place to live. You need the air. You need the land. And there's a lot of oversight that's just never been done. And the goal should be about ending homelessness. And it should be about easing the cost burden of people to bring people back. Okay. If you can't end homelessness, if this plan doesn't map out a plan to end homelessness and cost burden, alleviate cost burden, you should say no. And if you haven't reached out there, like Charles, I think that's a great idea. I say you haven't reached out there to the community. I mean, you're making decisions on a lot of, and all the other boroughs, by the way, the CBs and the other boroughs are against this. Why are they against it? Okay, all right, and it's not about NIMBYism. They've got their own personal properties they want to protect, of course. But we need to find a common ground. You can't speak for them. You've got to come together and speak as a whole. And you got to bring these people off the streets. Number one, you've got to. It's way too long and it's correctable. And you got to alleviate the cost burden because people are being pushed out of these apartments and landlords are sneaky about it. And they work around, they make it miserable for people in these tenement buildings. And this is a giveaway to the, and this should be community led. It should be city led, but the city is not going to lead for the best benefit of the public because the policies represent the corporations, the developers. That's the real problem. That's how we got here. And so I have to urge you to say it's not a well thought out plan, because it's not. It doesn't take care of our problems, and it will not take care of problems. It's, in fact, it's going to drive us further into the ground. It's going to strip us away with services. It's going to strip us away of housing, and it's going to give it to the developers. And we're already sliding into a horrible direction.
Thank
So-
you, John.
Point of order,
Okay.
Chair. Can we do 2 minutes per public comment?
Yeah, I think there are no other ones that I see at the moment, but going forward. Oh, absolutely. Okay. Do we have anyone who can run a timer for me, please? Yeah, we do. Thank you.
My name is Raphael Schweitzer. I was at your school board meeting about 3 or 4 months ago, speaking about my conflict or pursuit or I don't remember. Anyway, it went. So I've been to 35 different community board meetings this year, including 8 in Queens, 16 in Brooklyn, 8 in Manhattan, 1 in the Bronx, that's from the Bronx, and 1 in Staten Island. Boards are vehemently opposed to this, especially Queens and a lot in Brooklyn, because there's still a lot of 1 and 2 family home communities. And I just wanted to make a suggestion that it should be, I would say no with provisions, because 1, for the affordable housing, it's a 1,300-page document, and there's not been a lot of data provided with it. It's just theory on, how much will be built. However, it's going to have such a drastic effect on, yes, other community boards, but yes.
Are we in
Queens.
comments or are we in questions?
We are in comments.
Um,
Or sorry, we're in questions. Well, continue.
just because a lot of these communities have zoning, yes, 2-story, 3-story. I was at Community Board 10, went to the office today in Bay Ridge. That's a predominantly, you go down Fifth Avenue, Bay Ridge, by the Verrazano Bridge, 3-story, 4-story. And the main arteries have their, the one lane traffic. And it's like, where's all the infrastructure? You see what happens when it rains. Everything gets flooded with the sewage system, the schools. So this is a massive proposal. I just wanted to urge Manhattan community boards, not to just think about our community, but this is a citywide proposal that's going to affect so many other communities. And I think community boards should vote in solidarity with one another. So if it's, if 12 out of 14 Queens community boards voted down. So in solidarity, no with provisions instead of yes with provisions. That's my thank you.
Luana Green, sorry, before you start, Luana, are we able to put something up on the screen by any chance? So your timer, this should be now.
Do that?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes.
And to answer your question, David, we're doing question and comment from members of the public, and then we will move to comments by board members in a business session.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, Luana Green, you were able to speak.
Thank you so much. Thank you, CB5, for doing this, having this emergency meeting, and thank you, board members, for doing your due diligence and researching this project. My question is, Julie, you mentioned a lot of things that I have looked at during this process, and I wonder if you have evaluated, if part of your evaluation has been that the development of units or quote unquote affordable housing is voluntary for the developers. It's not mandated, and it is in their economic interest to have this affordability process in place. And you would hope that the developers would fall into the we will develop affordable units, but according to this proposal, excuse me, that is purely voluntary. The other thing is you talked about the 80-20, but it's actually 60% of the AMI, which can be divvied up with a 20-40. So it doesn't have to be 60% of the AMI. It can be a 20% or 40% or something that equals out to 60%. So my concerns are, besides those issues, I wondered if you looked at that. Depending on the neighborhood, the 70%, I mean, the 60% would still be a high amount of money to pay for rent in some of the boroughs. So my other question is, have you looked at the use of air rights in terms of neighboring buildings, and what would that do to the density of the area, the environmental effects of that, and the large tall towers? So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comment, Loa.
So I mentioned that the MIH is the only one that's not voluntary, and the 485X mechanism, and then government funded affordable housing. But the committee is concerned about the need for more affordable housing, and in one of our whereas clauses, we emphasize that 50% of the entire population of our city is rent burdened, right? And then 30% is severely rent burdened and spends 50% of their income on housing. So we need more than just what the three mechanisms I mentioned. And one provision we wanted to include in our stipulation is that DCP consider replying certain projects over, like, we didn't want to put specific numbers, but let's say in Vienna, buildings over 150 units, they're required to provide some sort of affordable housing. So we're asking DCP, these conversions and these new projects are larger projects that can pencil out. Let's make them be required to provide some affordable housing. And the average income, 60% AMI that you mentioned. Yes, so in our district, I mentioned we have higher, maybe 100% AMI, 120% AMI. When you do an average 60% income for our district, and they're doing like some 100% and some 30% to get that 60% average. Yes, it may help some of our homeless, which we do have a lot, and it may help some of the people with the 100% AMI. So that's how the income average works. But for, let's say, a community like East New York, that the average income is 30%, and they're doing income averages where 100% and 30% are being created. That's not going to help them very much. So the 60% income average for a lot of the neighborhoods is not good enough.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of the public? Seeing none, so we're going to move to business session for just members of the committee and CB5 members for comment. So you, I know you have to leave.
Yes, thank you. So to me, I know this might annoy a few people, but to me, this is like what we're discussing is not actually about the resolution. I think it's a great resolution. I think it's written very well, so on and so forth. But to me, it's more of a process question where it's like, our bylaws say that we can take an action if we consider it to be an emergency. I think for the borough board meeting tomorrow, that is an emergency. There's no other opportunity to comment. Either we comment there and we vote there, or we don't. For CPC, there is an opportunity to comment. We have, months to write written comment, and basically no other community boards speak at the CPC public hearings. I, checked for the economic opportunity one. So my proposal, I had to leave, but if we get there, would be to approve this exclusively for the purposes of the borough board and not to speak to it at CPC. Or I think we should table this resolution entirely, abstain at borough board, not comment at CPC, and then let it go through the regular process where we would discuss it and vote on it at the full board, with everyone there. And I understand like that does mean we, lose our voice at Borough Board, but we still would maintain, I would argue, a fuller voice when we write our CPC comment because it's from the whole board. And so that's how I would feel. I had to go, but I just wanted to put that out there that I think we should consider maybe saying like, we approve it, commenting at Borough Board, but not at CPC, or neither or both, just to have all the options. Right. Thank you.
I can say a quick thing, just for the public comments, given this process is a little bit unique, I know normally after the board approves a resolution, they're posted on the website. I'm just thinking, when will our detailed resolution be able to be posted for the public? Given the interest in the meeting, and I would like
If we approve it tonight, you're saying? Or if we approve it at full board?
if we approve it tonight, I'm just wondering, in this circumstance, when would that be out there where public people participating in this meeting can view the details?
Like when, just can someone look at this resolution? So I believe the process is, though I don't know if I've ever participated in this particular way, is that once if we were to approve it tonight provisionally, I think we would put it on our website. I don't know if there's a way to put on that this is a provisional opinion subject to ratification by the full board or something to that effect, but that would be what I'd understand. And then we would on Thursday still vote on it as a full board. And then it would go to the normal channels after that point in time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Comments I'm gonna go for members in the room and then we'll go online. Any comments from members in the room? Okay. Okay. David?
On the board or just on the committee?
We'll do the committee and then we'll go to full board.
I sort of wanted to separate, there were a lot of comments on the whereas sections, which were not necessarily the subject of the last committee meeting. There were fewer comments on the resolve, which were very specifically the result of the committee meeting. So I would almost separate people's comments in those ways. I mean, I feel like the resolve was discussed by the committee, voted on by the committee, and so that is the recommendation of land use. The comments on the whereas, are background and historical, and I could see a more liberal take on changes to the whereas, but I think it would be difficult to change the resolve at this point because there was a lot of detailed discussion and review leading up to the committee meeting. And I think it would be difficult to just say, okay, I want to amend the resolve section here and now and have that conversation in this venue. I just find that inconsistent with the way we treat, committee findings in other.
Okay. I wanted to second both what David and Samir said. I think happy to have a conversation about the whereas clauses. I think folks have submitted some and we can have that conversation. The resolve, I think, does reflect the compromise position that we came to after hours of discussion at Landmarks. And I'd like to see that stay. And then I agree with Samir's point that really the question for us tonight is a procedural one. And to the extent we could split the question from Borough Board tomorrow and DCP or CPC, I would support splitting those because I think our bylaws specifically say the executive committee can take action before the full board if there's an emergency. I can understand there being an emergency. If there's a vote tomorrow at Borough Board, and you have to make a vote tomorrow, that's fine. But if comments can be received until September by the city, and there's no difference for the question that was asked before, at least in their view, from oral comment or written, and other boards don't provide oral comment, not an emergency. Thanks.
Online, Renee.
Hi. So on the City of Yes for Economic Opportunity, CB5 abstained at Borough Board. The full board didn't have an opportunity to discuss. I know because I represented CB5. So I agree with Samir. We should punt on the Borough Board and let the full board. This is the biggest zoning resolution we are ever going to hear as a board. We have talked again and again about transparency and having everyone weigh in. I think it's really important that the board has a voice. So I agree with Samir that we wait and have our voice heard at the end of September.
I'm gonna keep going through these comments, but then I do sort of want to tackle that because I think that will recruit a lot of the discussion that potentially might happen tonight if we are going to go with this procedural route. So let's go to Todd.
Hi, everybody. I agree with Renee and Samir. I think what's important, the reason I asked my first question in the question segment is to Encore's point. If this resolution, at least part of it, represents their best effort, we should give it great deference, and that will build on that going forward. That's our committee. We should give it great weight, and we have the right as new information and it's time and the time we have to add additional comments through September, and I think we should do that. I think it's critically important, as Renee said, that all 50 of us have a chance to weigh in on this. You know, procedurally, that's really important. And, you know, we can talk more about whether or not at Borough Board, we're going to abstain or make a statement saying that, you know, this is what we have at this point, but we reserve the right to come back with additional comments. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at our board because, you know, we have a good reputation for balancing the equities and trying to be fair to all sides. And I would call attention to what Renee said. There's nothing on zoning issues that's going to come across our board than the city of Yes. And we shouldn't feel rushed about it. Okay. We should take the time we need to evaluate it. And at the end of the day, all 50 of us should feel that we've made our best effort and that whatever we're going to come up with is going to be reflected in our comments and resolutions.
All right, thank you. Julie?
I know, Samir mentioned that CDs don't usually comment CPC, but I'm wondering how important commenting at CPC is. Like, what is CPC voting on, and how could they affect this zoning? Because CPC,
So they won't be voting until September.
okay,
So
why is this?
it's just like the window opens tomorrow or Wednesday. And then it concludes at the end of September, is my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone else in the room has a different understanding, but.
Well, the full board meeting in September would be after the deadline, so the opportunity for full board is our July meeting, so we don't have it. Yes, so
Yeah.
that's the other issue that's driving it.
So we're not at Xavier this time, so there's no time limit, but in theory, if we ran out of time and couldn't come to a resolution, then that would be an issue, but. Semantics.
Are they gonna have additional public hearings for people to comment in person, given the like level of interest? Is there a reason behind that?
I believe that the hearing on Wednesday is the only public hearing that's planned right now.
There's gonna be, I believe a lot of individuals are gonna go and testify. So if individuals are testifying and CBs aren't testifying, I'm just wondering, you know, it must be important. And like, this is just an opportunity for us to voice something, but I totally understand that whatever we voice should be from 50 people, not a select group.
Renee, is your hand still up or is it newly up? Newly up, okay. Anything from members of exec before I move to full board, while they address the board? Justin?
Yeah, so I do think we should proceed with expressing our position at full board. I think if we don't take a view, gotta do miss out on something. And I do think the conversation was very good conversation, and there are a lot of folks there speaking to different sides of the issue. And I thought it really came to like a great consensus. I felt like, and I thought the resolution right now is very well written. So I would be in favor of proceeding, either supporting for just borough president, just for the borough board, or just proceeding fully.
All right, Aaron, yeah, go for it.
So, I think some of the comments that were made are make a lot of sense. So I mean, I would support, well, I think we're talking, I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but what sort of happened, what Sir Tristan said, I would support tabling this, and not taking a position tonight.
I maybe more wholeheartedly support what Tristan says. We could vote, support the resolution as written at Borough Board. But then as we have more time to comment, generally we can wait until after, although I imagine that would be a full vote at our meeting on Thursday. So it would just be that.
Yeah, I think that's the menu of options in front of us, is we do the normal procedure and we don't comment at Borough Board, and we don't comment at CPC. And we just do it that way, and then we issue formal comment to DPC following that. I would then abstain at Borough Board. So that we would not take a position for that vote. We could split it up, so we could say authorized to speak at Borough Board, but we don't want to do CPC, we want to wait and get the full comment from the full board, or we approve for both of those events, the Borough Board and CPC, and then if there are any modifications, or if we want to say something additional following that full board meeting, we then submit that in writing as an amendment to our petition to CPC. So I think that's the menu of options in front of us. Before we get to that, I think that sounds like maybe we should decide which one of the votes we want. I'm going to do members of the community board who are online, who are not exempt members. So Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, are we still commenting?
We are still commenting, though right now we're discussing kind of procedural concerns, so I'd like to keep comments focused on that.
Yes, yes, that's good.
Before we then talk about substantive, if that becomes a thing we want to discuss.
Yeah. I'm in favor of tabling. I definitely with my fellow members who made that point. I'm really concerned that you heard earlier about, a section of our district not even knowing about this or being able to comment. And I'm just wondering, Chair, if there's a way to, if the board does agree that should be tabled, I'm just wondering if there's a way when you give that abstention, if you can make the comment, which is the city has to do better at outreach. They do better with outreach and other things, and they really need to, if they're really going to help people who are on welfare and people who need affordable housing, they need to go to them and really do a lot better than what they've done.
Michael?
To stick to the procedural nature of it, I think there's a lot of risk in making a statement in any way that approves something that I have grave concerns about, and I think many members of the full board will have grave concerns about. The complexities of how different provisions will interact with one another can be very risky, and there are going to be a lot of eyes on what we say and do. And if we say at any point that we approve this, that's going to be the story, and that's going to be the message, and that's what's going to carry as a through line that CB5 approves this. And so I think that if we're unwilling to look at the way in which we phrase our concerns, to really shed light on the grave underlying concerns beneath this thing that are separate from all of the great things that it can do, then it could get steamrolled and just like become a runaway train of its own. And we never really get to making the real substantive comment that we want to make. I think that's pretty much the core of what I wanted to address on this.
Well, my question is, procedure. If we table this until the full board meeting, and we have 9:30 deadline at the full board.
We don't. We're not Amazon, not Xavier, so we could go as long as we want.
Okay. All right.
Lucky us.
Is that what the executive committee desired?
We'll find out.
No, I mean about the time.
And just a really quick addendum was that, I mean, the vote on the land use committee was split, and the statement you're gonna make it at full board is not just the land use committees, but the entirety of CB5s. And I really don't think that through consideration and negotiation, it is likely that the full board will pass something that includes the word approve. And I think we should take that into account.
So I agree with what Renee, Samir, and others have said about, you know, letting the full board weigh in. I want to comment on what was just said and be really clear about my understanding procedurally. It is my understanding procedurally that all sorts of amendments can be made either here or full board to a resolution, but no amendment can be made that reverses the conclusion of the resolution. In other words, in any amendment that seeks to change an approval to a denial would be improperly offered by Robert's rules. That you can't, in other words, offer an amendment to make a resolution say the reverse of what it said. It would have to actually be kicked back to the committee. So I want to be really clear about when we say that we're going to table and talk about a full board about what's in scope and what's not. Now, you're the chair. It's ultimately your decision to decide whether that's true, but let's get out in advance of that, if that's going to be the desire, that amending, sure, reversing the actual will of the committee from an approval to a denial, in my interpretation, would be off the table.
And I mean, that's something I will be doing more research between now and next Thursday. However, I think it would be more that, let's say hypothetical, we take this to a vote on the full board, it fails. Somebody could then make a motion to say this exact same thing, but deny unless with the same conditions, and that would be possible procedure.
I don't think that's the case. I think we'd still have to go back to the committee to get to be revoted on, but we could,
Yeah,
we can look at that.
we can look at Robert's rules together later, to make sure that that's the case. But anyway, okay, it will be a longer process, should this not be passed as is the full board. And
I feel like I'm in the minority here, but I'm gonna advocate against tabling this resolution. I feel like I hear all these comments and I agree with both sides. But one thing to keep in mind is that we as a community board have no actual authority or power. Our only real power is our voice. And we have a responsibility to make that voice as loud as possible. And so giving up an opportunity to speak that voice on Wednesday, I think would be a mistake, even if it only represents 75%, say, of the will of what the committee might say on Thursday. I think that still has value.
Just to explore this idea further, like, instead of us going to CPC and saying yes, could we express the pros and cons of what we see and have a balanced viewpoint? Like, there's obviously some good things, but obviously some concerns. And we share that collection of ideas.
I have the same question. So you're gonna be going to the borough board and presenting our thoughts.
well, the way it will work is tomorrow morning, the borough board will have a vote on the city of yes. And so it's sort of an up or down thing.
Okay.
There's not like I can't
not like you're just
opine.
giving
Yeah,
feedback.
yeah. It is, are you in favor, or are you not? So at that point, I would abstain, were we not have a decision tonight. Which is okay, fine, if that's what we want to do. I'm just saying that that's what will happen. CPC is a little bit different because that one's, I think, in sort of more of a comment form. And so in theory, we could list our concerns, but not give them the punchline. And then decide the punchline and amend our concerns sometime before that September deadline. I think procedurally wise, is that? Yeah, okay. I think procedurally wise, that's how that would work, but
You can comment, you don't have to, you can comment, so the comment is, pretty broad.
On the second one, I think and folks were either in the room or may have seen the land use hearing. I think nearly 70% of that committee voted in favor of this. And the issue that I think was very clear to many people was wanting to get to a yes and trying to take in as many viewpoints. And I think the resolution is a really admirable job of collecting everybody's different viewpoints. But that was the issue. People accepted a number of these concerns, even if they didn't share them, in an effort to get to a yes, because the thing that mattered to them was signaling yes. So I suppose I would not be in favor of something that just expressed a number of concerns, because some people actually did not have significant concerns with what DCP had proposed, but only accepted those in exchange for getting the yes, which again, nearly 70% of the committee said yes. Borough board, to me, seems like a little bit more perhaps an emergency situation, but anyway, I'd be happy to vote, because it sounds like we have two options, but.
Can you just talk a lot, like, Borough Board is not actually a part of ULURP, like, can you just like, what is Borough Board?
So it is the Manhattan Borough President, all of the chairs of all of the community boards. There are a couple other members, but essentially it functions kind of like so it functions sort of like a super board that represents kind of the positions of the community boards, broadly speaking, across. So it's like the way that we speak with a united voice as community boards, as opposed to the individual geographic areas that we address.
But it's not actually part of ULURP, like our resolutions as a board are the thing that actually matters. It is like a fun vote. But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Right.
When I understand it, the borough board is inviting the borough president, and the borough president also has to say with her. And so the borough president will use the borough board as the way to gather information.
Thank you.
And create his opinion.
Okay, thank you.
And this is gonna do that.
Oh, right. Thank you also for that.
Question. Do we know how any of the other boards in Manhattan have come down on this? It's like, in essence, I'm trying to get to, is there a reason that some people who are in favor of this might be trying to get you in a position where you say yes, and then this vote changes so that politically and publicly Manhattan community boards have voted in favor of this? Is, I guess, the question I consider.
Mark, the thing is on record that he's gonna vote yes. He's like wildly, yeah. If we say no, it's not gonna let you vote.
Your question, I mean, I don't have like the tally of, where all, I mean, I don't know if you have that, Marisa, somewhere, but I don't think I have a tally of where all the community boards are right now, because it's also part of their process. It's like, that's why there's some of the concern and why that letter that I circulated previously was sent, because like a lot of community boards are not able to they're doing exactly what we're doing now, which is like, how do we talk about this without, outside of our normal process?
Thank
you.
Can I say something, Brad?
After David, yeah, you're next up.
To second what Kevin was saying, a lot of the strengths that we have in the ULURP process is that we weigh in early. So, the fact that we are presenting a series of issues at the front means that people will need to take that into account in subsequent reviews. And so I think any opportunity that we have to put the resolved portion of this out there is of value, because it helps set the tone for future debate. If we delay that, we could show up the day before the city council vote, but the odds of anybody listening to anything we say are much reduced. So, if we want real input into this issue, then we should do it earlier, because that's how ULURP works, and that's where we get the greatest, bang for our buck in the input that we provide.
Todd?
Okay, so as to the issue of Manhattan Borough Board, right? So we shouldn't feel pressured to take a position that in due consideration we would otherwise make. I think that if we decide to abstain, as we've discussed, that if that is what we think is the best course to allow us to consider this fully, then that's what we should do. I tend to think that whatever comes out of Manhattan, whatever comes out of the borough board is going to be taken by our borough president and supporters of this as a definitive or positive statement, and they're going to run with it. And nuance and complexity and context, which Julie's resolution has done such a great job of doing, may be lost, right? Or additional comment from all 50 of us is going to be buried or lost. So we should exercise our independence. If we feel that we have more to say and we need more time to say it, I think that we should do that. So, I think we should, move ahead. Everybody's going to get their chance. And at the end of this discussion, let's decide. We send Bradley and he can abstain, or we send him there. But what I would advise is if we do decide to support the resolution in whole or in part, Bradley will do the best he can. He'll vote yes or no, and he'll be there. He'll interact or will interact at a later time and do the best we can and make it known that we're going to take all our deliberate time to come up with the best advisory role as we always have.
So I do want to, I think we are kind of circling the wagons now, or kind of coming to a position. So Zul, I do see your hand is raised. Is this about the procedural concern, or is this about the resolution itself?
It is the procedural.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So where I'm hearing unanimity is on the complexity of this issue. But what I'm wondering about is the further outreach. I mean, certainly those of us who are on land use and those who have a particular interest in this have steeped themselves in it. But on Thursday, there will be members who really not have had the time to do the due diligence necessary. And then further, as Charles had brought up and John Mudd has brought up, I mean, what is our responsibility as a board to the wider community in doing that outreach? I don't know how we do that, but I think that's something to really give further consideration to. And that would be procedural.
Thank you.
I just want to support what David said. I think there's a lot of horse trading at the end, and the sooner we tell some of these stipulations we have, the sooner the council members can help us horse trade and get some of what we want.
Just very quickly on that point, isn't the difference between tomorrow and Thursday? Like,
well, it's, I think the difference is speaking at the CPC or submitting written comment at the
2 days later.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
All right, we have we have a motion for one of these options that we want to. It seems like we are sort of leaning either full bore in terms of approve everything or approve nothing and wait until full board. I don't know if I heard a lot of people split, but maybe I'm misinterpreting. Libby, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to provisionally approve this for Borough Board tomorrow, not testify at CPC, and then take the vote and then submit the comment after our full board vote on Thursday.
Seconded.
And just to clarify for that, so I think I've said this before, but should something change between this resolution and what we ultimately approve, that will then have to be somehow amended as it goes to Borough Board, but it will be.
Logistically, it seems simplest, which is why I'm offering this.
All right. So can we take this to a vote, please?
Yes, okay.
Point of order question?
Yeah.
What are the differences between the two events?
So Borough Board is all the chairs and the Borough President.
Yep.
It's essentially like Mike said, for the Borough President to sort of.
I guess a more pointed question, why the distinction between approving it for one event but not the other event?
The other event, you have time to.
To get the full 50 members to sign off on it and then
There is
submit it
no
ready.
other Borough Board that's gonna hear this item again.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Very simple.
I just wanted to let members know that Manhattan City Council members are part of Borough Board. So if you go to Borough Board, they will hear this at Borough Board.
Okay, so let's vote. So Julie. Ankur.
Yes.
Catherine.
Yes.
Aaron.
No.
Kevin.
No.
Tristan.
Yes.
Libby.
Yes.
Renee.
No.
Miles.
Yes.
Samir left. Kim.
She's on.
She's on.
Kim?
Oh, yes.
And yes, I am yes. Todd.
Come back to me.
David.
Yes.
Janice,
No.
Julie,
Yeah, I'm voting no because I think CPC is more important than Borough Board.
okay, and Todd.
No.
Okay. Uh. Motion passes 8-6.
I don't think you did, Catherine.
I did, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Catherine voted yes. Motion passes 8-6.
All right. So I think we have our direction, so I will bring this resolution as written to Borough Board tomorrow. Approved with these specific conditions. And then we will not comment at CPC on Wednesday. We will then take the full vote on Thursday, and then that will be the position that we submit to CPC in a written format. All right. I think that's everything. Thank you all.
Did you have a hand?
Were we not gonna talk about the resolution then?
I mean, do we?
It's just a vote, right? Like your vote at Borough Board is just a vote, not.
It is just a vote, yes. I
Right,
mean, we
so-
can
Are
talk
we gonna
about
vote
it.
yes at Borough Board?
That's what we just voted on, yes. Yes.
I thought that was with the understanding procedurally, but then whatever we moved forward with the resolution with like like the way we organized it would be the specific like line edits to then move this. This is our only opportunity to move it to the full board, because we're not addressing this tomorrow. Tomorrow's exec
Tomorrow's exec is not addressing this.
is not
beyond-
addressing this at all.
Beyond Aaron's.
Yeah,
report,
like
it's-
moving it forward, but are we gonna then ask for all of those edits to be at the full board in general?
Yeah, I mean,
Were people confused with that vote?
no.
I thought the conversation was, we didn't wanna say yes yet, but we were okay with some of the comments in the resolution.
So my understanding of what we just voted on is that this resolution as written is what will be presented to, is what will be the basis of my vote at Borough Board tomorrow. We will not say anything at CPC, it's a public hearing. Then we will submit written testimony to CPC following our full board meeting on Thursday.
Yes.
Question?
Yeah.
Are there, I guess, let me put it this way, are there members in the majority position who would like to reconsider that motion, or are we?
I wish we had been closer and spoke, 8-6. It doesn't sound like a very clear.
Yeah, it's not.
Mandate for any particular direction, but. You can work with.
You voted yes, but I thought you were saying that at CPC, we should be expressing, we should try to get our comments.
I was less concerned about Wednesday than just getting in after Thursday. I don't know that we're in a position to.
Yeah.
Sit.
So
Mostly how I feel.
my understanding, this is Catherine, my understanding is that Wednesday at Borough Board is a finite opportunity. In CPC, there is still time, there's still substantial time. And
The Borough Board is Tuesday, but otherwise correct, yeah.
yeah, I don't know what day it is going. I have to put a date on every single thing. But I do want to say, well, and I'm in a moment where I don't know what to say, when, where, and what. But I have questions. So I have to work through my questions around how we make this a more I think the resolution needs practical legs and feet that more people can understand. And I'll just have to figure out how, when and where to say that. And hopefully the summer and deadlines won't be over, but thank you. Anyway.
Brad, if I can jump in, at Borough Board, I think you're going to have to go through the buckets and the sheet that the Borough Board office provided you. I don't think it's going to be just a yes or no. That's what City of Yes for Economic Opportunity, that's how it was voted. You're going to have to either abstain for each of the things or say yes for yes or no.
In light of that, I thought that this was like the procedure of like, we were answering the first question first, the same way that like making the line item edits for what you're gonna present tomorrow. It was a procedural vote, not
Sure, I mean,
content vote.
and if that's that we want to do it, I'm totally open to that. If we want to make those edits now, so that what I'm saying
like
tomorrow is
typos.
addressing those things. That, are there concerns to that process?
It depends what we're talking about. Like, what edits are we intending to make? I don't know what the committee feels.
So yeah, I think that's where we're going.
As outlined at the beginning of the meeting agenda, when you said like first it was gonna be like questions and then comments and then like
Yeah,
specific.
for me,
back
quite
and
frankly,
forth.
I didn't expect this process of splitting things apart to come as part of this.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's fine.
Wait, just, can you clarify one more time? So regarding CPC, even though we have until September to comment, Wednesday is when our only opportunity to verbally comment, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
And everyone understood.
Yes.
Okay, so we're giving up our chance to verbally comment.
Paper we're in comments.
This is
Okay.
Renee again. I don't mean to keep jumping in, Brett. I'm sorry. CPC has already said on their website, they expect the testimony time to be over 12 hours. So I don't know if somebody from the board office is willing to go down and be there for 12 hours for CPC testimony. I'm just letting you know that.
Thank you.
Or Aaron or
If,
Brad.
you know, people feel
Whoever
strongly
that
about
is.
it, You're going, right? You'll be there. Testify to that. There's nothing that prevents us from wearing the other hat. And introducing it into the discussion.
I'm concerned with the official yes for the Manhattan Borough President's thing. Just, there are some concerns I know the board has, and going in with a definite yes may not capture more concerns that are not missing.
Well, it won't be a definite, I mean, it will be the yes, but with the conditions that are written in this, or if we decide to amend that, I suppose that would also be.
Would it, because Renee just said that it's more about buckets and less about our stipulations.
Well,
The buckets are the stipulations,
the
I thought,
buckets
like
fall-
based on the rubric.
They
The
don't.
point was this
they-
is the rubric.
The rubric, I mean, the rubric, which is on our website, does not perfect, I mean, I looked at I looked at our stipulations and tried to match them up with buckets. A few of them
They
do,
do.
but many do not.
But it's the rubric that you're going to have to, it's like a yes, no on the rubric. That's how City of Yes for Opportunity went. You can look at the video of it if you want to see it.
And when you're speaking of the rubric, what are we speaking about the list? The,
The rubric is the one that DPC provided, that's Aaron said it's on the website.
right, I have the link for that.
Can somebody drop that into the chat? Kristen?
I guess kind of just a question, like, so we knew we were not adhering to the rubric when we wrote the resolution. But we just, because we wanted to have more comprehensive view. And so why are we concerned about it now? Because, like, if we were gonna pass the resolution, were you gonna thinking that we would work on the rubric here? And
No,
look at
it's
that?
that they're not gonna listen to the stipulations, they're just gonna hear the yes. Because they're just gonna go through the rubric and you're just gonna vote yes, 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 and that might detract from the whole goal of the resident.
I mean, just perhaps this will ease people's minds a little bit. Most community boards in Manhattan are struggling exactly the way CB5 is struggling and has stipulations and is, did not fill out that rubric for those reasons. So I think, I don't think it's going to be black and white at the borough board. I think there's going to be a lot of conversation, and whatever this resolution ends up being, that Brad goes with will inform his decisions and input into that conversation. So I don't think it's going to be just a black and white list, because I don't think there's any board, and the borough board is made up of boards, that has made it such in their own decisions.
I think it's very helpful, and also, you are our designee as chair of the board. We trust you. You know that I think this was clear, and Julie did an incredible job putting together a resolution that captured so many concerns that people had. but also said the things that we wanted to say yes to and the conditions that accompanied our yes. I think you can convey all of those things, the concerns, the yes, and the conditions.
Are there specific things, I'm trying to pull up the rubric now, are there specific buckets that are wholly absent? You were saying that most of our resolution transfers onto it, but some of it doesn't.
Like, for example, our request for public bathrooms does not fit nicely into any of their buckets.
Yeah, they're proposing minimizing the dwelling unit factor or getting rid of it. We don't talk about it at all in our resolution.
Yeah,
Does not have any comment on it.
I mean,
We voted yes, but we had conditions, so we didn't have a condition on that one, but we did say yes on that.
yes, I mean,
Okay.
my understanding, just to be clear, is that our yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Because we
saying,
haven't
in general, yes,
given a condition to it, that means it's a yes.
in general, we need to create more supply. Some of these mechanisms create supply. Right? But the problem is we need guardrails along with these buildings getting larger to make sure people actually get what they need.
Yeah, so the way that I would approach this tomorrow, if this is the way that we're going, is I would be voting yes on the resolutions, and when these apply, I would be sort of slotting them to those buckets, and then where they don't apply, I would find the opportunity to raise the other items that are on this that are not easily slotted into those buckets, because like Marisa said, many of the other boards have the same sort of approach, and so I imagine that will come up, and if it doesn't, I can make it as a point of order at tomorrow's discussion, so that these, or, you know, if we decide that we want to further amend this tonight, that those stipulations are raised.
Actually, I think it is a good point. Like CB5 needs to talk during that conversation because all 12 CDs are going to be there, and you should share our voice to the other CDs so everybody can go back and make more decisions.
So I have to ask my specific question. My specific question is there anything that would help us? I want to localize. I want us to be able to localize City of Yes in CB5. So for example, is how does City of Yes fit into Midtown South mixed use plan? So you're looking at 42 square blocks. You're looking at a lot of housing, old laws and new laws. And to me, this is a project that sits in our district that's huge, right? And so you have the opportunity to think about supply, think about displacement in a more deep way. And I'll try to put some of this together in something and send it somewhere where you all can look at it. But I need this to have a little more of a practical slant to it. So for example, in City of Yes, they talk in the illustrated guide, they talk about Essex Crossing. Essex Crossing is a wonderful project to look at because it talks about deep-seated displacement and how you bring people from the 1970s to housing in the district that they had to leave because way back when, prior to some of the administrations that you mentioned, there was a push out. So displacement is not a new issue. And the opportunity here is to really be repairers of the breaches the way I know it. And so I don't want to miss that. And I don't know where. I thank y'all for I thank Julie for what and you all have deliberated on so far, but I still think we're missing the opportunity to be granular and localized.
So, thank you, Catherine. So I think what I'm hearing is that there is appetite still for modifications to this. That would be what I would bring to the borough board tomorrow. It seems like there may be some additional stipulations, such as the ones that Catherine just raised. So I guess what I'm going to now suggest is that if we want to tackle those tonight so that they make it into the comment borough board, we can do that now, or if we want to wait and make those modifications.
Can I ask a question? Brad, I'm sorry for jumping in. My hand was up. To be clear, we at the land use committee, we spoke about not discussing sort of low density units, but you're saying, I think I heard you say you're going to vote yes on everything that's in the plan that we don't have a stipulation on. Is that what you're suggesting?
that would be how I'd understand this resolution, but I mean.
Okay,
you know, big stipulation, so.
I would, I don't think that that's what we had discussed. And I think that the resolution says that there are certain things that we don't touch upon, that we don't touch very specifically.
But then the low density things like town centers.
Yeah,
and
all of that is.
ADUs.
Is that
We
outside
didn't
of our-
discuss, it's outside of our purview. We didn't discuss that at all.
Same for those.
Does that, I mean, does that,
I don't.
Does that-
It's not in the resolution, so we don't have a position on those specifics.
I mean, we can say that in general, we like that City of Yes creates housing in all districts of the city, which is different from the previous two administrations. I think that's important, but to actually say ADUs without investigating what ADUs are could be problematic.
yeah, I mean, they're, the entire first page of this is the low density to medium density, which does not apply to our district at all. We have got I have a lot of backup, so I'm gonna go to Mike, then Michael, and then Ankur, and then Aaron.
I just, if we're not gonna go to that form tonight, saying yes, no, abstain, whatever, I would suggest for you to vote abstain for things that do not fit in any category. And then vote yes or no for anything that does fit. That'll be my suggestion, that it's up to you guys. to vote how you want.
Thank you, Chair, and of course, I'm not a member of this committee, but I have deep concerns about the vote that was just taken. I do not think that it reflects the opinion of the board as a whole, and that I would encourage the executive committee to reconsider and ask Brad to abstain and slot things in wherever he may. But again, I am not a voting member of this body, and I just wanted to be on the record expressing concerns.
To the extent you have to abstain, that's fine. It sort of is your prerogative at this point. You have a resolution that was passed by this board tonight, 8-6. You also had what I thought was a very clear vote at our committee meeting. We voted yes overall with specific conditions, and we listed every one of those conditions. And like I said, Julie's done an incredible job of faithfully capturing every condition that was listed at that meeting. It was the only thing that we had specific concerns or comments on were listed here. There are many things in this resolution that were not talked about at the meeting. The entire history was not discussed at all at our meeting. And, you know, I think folks like, including me, you were copied on my email to them. I would disagree with some of the parts of the way this history was told. That's fine. I think we captured we knew that we were voting yes on City of Yes, and we had a list of specific conditions, and they have been listed out faithfully. That accurately captures what we voted on. And 70% of the committee voted in favor.
Aaron. So just to address some of the questions that Catherine had, because it sounds like Catherine's feedback, and I don't know if others share this, is that Catherine's looking for more analysis to understand the implications for our district, which don't sound like those can be amendments to, or things to amend to include in the resolution tonight. But again, I don't want to speak for her, but I do want to say that we have posted, there is a whole shared folder where we have research and notes from our consultant, Catherine. So Catherine, I would love for you to get access to some of that information if you have not able to read that, because there is some context about pros and cons of each initiative. So there is a lot more research and data that went into the resolution that we tried to sort of share to the board. There's a lot of documents, there's a lot of letters, pros and cons, a lot of resources that help shape the story of how this impacts our district. But you're right in that Midtown South is going to be a completely separate proposal that we as a board are going to hear. That is a timeline into 2025. So that even there is overlap, that is a separate proposal that we will hear, will be presented, and we will have a separate opportunity to comment on that on Midtown South. So there will be an opportunity for that.
Thank you, Aaron. And I remember I can reach out to you. Thank you. And thank you, Julie, for all that you've done.
But
so
just
far.
to provide more information, because Midtown South and office conversions, which is one of the proposals in City of Yes, go hand in hand. And I've been to office conversion conferences where you can talk about this for days. It's very complicated, but they're changing you can change office buildings beyond 1961 to include all the way to 1990. And like, there's, you know, you can add UAP to it. Office conversions are very hard. Sometimes the depth of the floor plate is so wide that you have to cut a cord into the middle of the building, which can be very expensive. So I know some people are concerned that office conversions don't trigger any affordable units. But again, in one of our stipulations is maybe for office conversions of a certain size, we ask for.
Ron?
So, I have to leave, and why that's noteworthy is that we would lose quorum. So do we anticipate that there will be additional motions? Should we consider what was already voted on? Or, well, I mean, sort of what are we doing?
Sure. Yeah, so, I mean, I think if one of the members who voted for that would like to vote to reconsider, that's totally fine. I'm happy to entertain that motion. If not, it sounds like we are going to lose quorum, and so if we want to make any modifications to this resolution, we are going to have to do it at full board. Because we are about to lose quorum next committee.
Right.
Okay, Renee.
Thanks. I also have to leave, so I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I'd like to include a modification, something to the resolution that we strike 7525 to allow for additional FAR and height as of right for buildings pre-1991, because that will get us no affordable housing. I just want to make it as a practical matter, it's logically inconsistent for us to approve a plan while also having conditions, as it means we're both accepting and not accepting the text in its current form. You know, nothing in this plan provides affordability. We're told that it's going to get development everywhere. The only thing that we're assured by this plan is that the developers will decide where it gets built, because we're not mandating anything. And so I agree with Michael, and I think we should change this and deny unless, so that we, as we always have done in the past, get our concerns heard. Anyway, thanks very much.
Okay. So I am not hearing a motion to reconsider from those who voted. So I think at this point, Ron looks like he's about ready to leave. I think we still have quorum. I think Todd counts as being a virtual member, as being virtual. He has an exemption.
No.
He does.
So
My bad.
So
I did not know that.
there are modifications to this resolution that people would like to address tonight. Otherwise,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right. Thank you all.
Good night.